The first body came in with the morning tide. At 6:14 a.m., on the edge of a small coastal town called Greyhaven, a fisherman named Elias Ward found something lying face down in the surf. At first, he thought it was a seal. Then the water rolled back, and he saw the shape of a human hand reaching out of the foam. The body was pulled from the shoreline less than an hour later. It belonged to a woman named Clara Voss, a schoolteacher who had drowned 9 years earlier after her car went off the old harbor bridge during a winter storm. Her body had never been recovered. But what disturbed the local police was not that Clara had returned. It was the condition she was in. There was no bloating. No damage from marine life. No sign that she had spent almost a decade in salt water. Her clothes were wet and faded, but her skin appeared almost preserved, pale and cold, as if she had been underwater for only a few hours. By noon, the story had spread across Greyhaven. By sunset, 2 more bodies had washed ashore. Both were identified as people who had drowned years before. Greyhaven was a quiet town built around the sea. Most families there had lost someone to the water. A father taken by a fishing accident. A teenager swept from the rocks. A child lost during a storm surge. The ocean had always been treated with respect, but also with distance. It gave the town its living, and it kept what it took. Until the spring of that year, when it began giving them back. In the days before the first body appeared, residents reported strange changes along the coast. The tide moved incorrectly. Fishing boats drifted even when their engines were off. At night, the water beyond the harbor glowed with a faint blue light, pulsing beneath the surface like something breathing in the dark. 3 weeks earlier, a private oceanic mining company had begun drilling tests 20 miles offshore. The official statement called it a routine survey of mineral deposits near an unexplored trench. The company insisted there had been no accident. But fishermen remembered the sound. A deep vibration that passed through the hulls of their boats and into their bones. Some described it as thunder beneath the sea. Others said it sounded like metal tearing slowly apart. After that sound, the fish disappeared. Then the dead came back. Over the next 6 days, 11 bodies were recovered from the shoreline. Every one of them had been missing at sea. Every one of them was returned in a state that forensic examiners could not explain. There was no advanced decomposition. No evidence of long-term exposure. Even the lungs contained seawater that tested unlike anything in the surrounding bay. It had a high concentration of minerals found only in deep ocean vents. But the most unsettling discovery came from the personal items found with the bodies. Several victims were recovered with phones, watches, and cameras that should have been destroyed by pressure and corrosion. Most devices were dead. One was not. It belonged to a 19-year-old named Jonah Pike, who had drowned while night swimming 4 years earlier. His phone turned on inside an evidence bag at the police station. The battery showed 1%. There was one new video file. The recording lasted 22 seconds. At first, the screen showed only darkness. Then came movement. A dim light flickered across a seabed covered in silt. Something pale drifted past the lens. A hand. Then another. Not floating, but standing upright in the dark water, fingers extended toward the camera. In the final seconds, a sound came through the damaged microphone. Not speech exactly. More like a voice trying to remember how words work. It said, "Not all of us came back." The investigation moved quickly after that. The Coast Guard closed the beaches. Police restricted access to the recovered bodies. Representatives from the mining company arrived in Greyhaven, followed by federal officials who refused to answer questions on camera. A research vessel was sent toward the drilling site. It returned 14 hours later without explanation. Crew members were removed from the ship and transported inland. One medic, speaking anonymously, said 3 of them had ruptured eardrums. Another had scratched the same sentence into the wall of his cabin over and over again. "The bottom is open." The official report blamed underwater seismic activity. It stated that pressure changes from a previously unknown geological fault may have dislodged remains from deep currents and carried them toward shore. But that explanation did not account for the preservation. It did not account for the functioning phone. And it did not account for the 12th body. On the 7th morning, another figure appeared on the beach. This time, the person was still breathing. His name was Daniel Reeve, a deckhand who had vanished with a trawler crew in 1986. According to public records, Daniel had been 28 years old when he disappeared. The man found on the beach looked exactly the same age. He was taken to hospital under police guard. Nurses reported that his body temperature was dangerously low, but he showed no signs of hypothermia. He did not speak for nearly 12 hours. When he finally opened his eyes, he asked one question. "How long has it been calling?" By the following morning, Daniel Reeve was gone. Security footage showed him walking out of his hospital room at 3:03 a.m., barefoot and soaked in seawater. He moved slowly, as if listening to something no one else could hear. His trail ended at the harbor. The same night, every emergency radio in Greyhaven received the same transmission. It was distorted, layered with static and the low groan of moving water. Behind the noise were voices. Dozens of them. Some young. Some old. Some recognized by the families who had buried empty coffins years before. They were all saying the same thing. Do not open the trench. The mining operation was suspended 2 days later. The company removed its equipment from the offshore site and issued no further public statements. The bodies were eventually released to their families, though several relatives later said they regretted holding second funerals. Because after burial, the graves stayed wet. Even during dry weeks, water gathered around the headstones. Salt crystals formed on the grass. And sometimes, late at night, people living near the cemetery reported hearing soft tapping from below the soil. Greyhaven never returned to normal. The beaches remained closed after dark. Fishing boats avoid the waters beyond the old drilling zone. On clear nights, a blue light can still be seen far offshore, rising and fading beneath the waves. No further bodies have washed ashore. But every year, on the same morning Clara Voss returned, the tide pulls back farther than it should. For a few silent minutes, the seabed lies exposed. And in the wet sand, facing the town, there are footprints. Hundreds of them. Coming from the ocean.